Hi, this is Lindsay Dillon responding to the prompt of how I feel about utilizing technology in my classroom. So as a millennial who's getting ready to enter the teaching profession, I'm definitely very comfortable with technology, and I'm very excited at the opportunity to utilize it in my classroom. Since I was in third grade, I've learned how to use a computer. We started learning how to use Microsoft Word, PowerPoint, Excel around that time. Around the time I got into middle school and high school, that's when we started using the internet a little more, and our teachers would teach us about where to look for information and what kind of sites to avoid when looking for certain types of information, especially with that age group. And that's the age group I plan on teaching as high school and middle school. It's very important, especially now, to teach them about factual versus infactual information and how to distinguish between the two, especially with the rise of fake news in certain recent years. Now, especially being a social studies teacher, I also think it's very important to implement technology just because it helps make the subject a lot more interesting for the kids. Not all students have the same interest in social studies though, and especially for a lot of students, they don't like sit there and just listening to the teacher drone on and on and on and on about the subject. They do much better in classes where they're allowed to be more interactive. That's why some kids like PE so much. That's why some kids are huge fans of science and drama and art especially. Technology would be the perfect way to create a more interactive and hands-on experience for students in social studies classes. One example that I can think of is allowing them to utilize their phones. They can use Google Docs. So you can use Google Docs if you invite different students to join one document. All of those students can include notes and edit the document all at the same time. If I want them to do a presentation, one of the ones I'm thinking of doing, for example, is having all of the students get into groups and assigning them different clauses in the First Amendment, going over the First Amendment rights, analyzing them, analyzing the writing, and essentially interpreting, discussing with each other and interpreting what they think the Founding Fathers would have meant by all of those different clauses. Another idea is allowing them to use their cell phones. We can use their cell phones for different in-class quizzes. One of my professors back at UTSA actually used to use, I believe it's called iClicker. And I was actually looking into that for my own classes when I was at San Antonio College. And basically it's a quizzing and like a polling software, and they could actually download the app onto their phones, and they'd be able to take quizzes and do different polls and whatnot throughout the lesson. I was also thinking of different polling software like SurveyMonkey so that students can give me feedback at the end of classes, letting me know how the lesson went. One website that I frequently used when I was at SAC was the digital history website created by the University of Houston. It's basically a digital free textbook, but they've also got primary documentation, different images and engravings from the time period, and interactive features like different lesson plans, interactive activities based around the subject matter in that particular chapter, and also different multimedia, so students would be able to listen to what kind of music and like folk songs they would have listened to at the time, even recordings of people reciting very important speeches such as Lincoln's Gettysburg Address. I know like one of the big things I want to do is get like a Microsoft Surface Book Pro at some point. Hopefully after I get this teaching job, I'll be able to afford one. And my husband's an illustrator, so he actually has an Adobe account and he utilizes Illustrator. He has access to Adobe Flash. So I'd even like to be able to take different primary resources, such as the Constitution, and create like an interactive module for my students. where they can go through and they can discuss and interpret the document and discuss their own interpretations using that technology and software. It's very important right now, especially because for a lot of people, our lives pretty much revolve around our phones and computers now. We use technology for just about everything in our lives. So why wouldn't we utilize it in our classroom as well and use the one thing that the students only ever seem to care about using, and that's utilizing their phones, utilizing computers to get them more interested in the lessons. So I hope that suffices as a response, and thank you for listening.